Good evening. This is John Henderson. Welcome everybody to this town hall that we set up to talk about extraterritorial service in metro districts, and particularly with respect to the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District. As I think most folks know, there's a recall election. The ballots will be going out next week, and the date of the election is October 5. We've invited all of the board members and the candidates to the town hall, and of course invited the public to the town hall to participate. The format, as we outlined in our invitation and in our blog, is pretty simple. The plan is to give each of the candidates for the recall positions 5 minutes to speak. Each of the board members who choose to participate 5 minutes to speak. And then we're going to open it up to the residents. And we've allocated 3 minutes for the residents to speak. And depending upon how many folks attend and how many speak and how much time this takes, we may have some additional time toward the end. But at this point, we're anticipating just 5 minutes for the candidates, 5 minutes for the board members, 3 minutes for the residents to speak, with no real questions and answers. We're anticipating, hoping that this is the beginning of a conversation, not the end. And I anticipate that there'll be other opportunities for question and answer sessions, and perhaps with the board as a whole when they're meeting formally as a board. JD is our master technician. He'll be helping us with the Zoom connections. If anyone has any difficulty, please let us know, either by contacting JD through the chat room or calling the number on the Zoom link. Before we get started, I did want to provide a brief outline of the history of the extraterritorial issue with respect to Green Mountain. I provided a more detailed outline of the chronology and the history in a recent blog. If you haven't seen that, it's on RooneyValleyNews.com. And it provides, again, an outline of the chronology, as well as significant documents and reference to the text of minutes from the board meetings. In just a couple minutes, let me give you the summary. A couple significant dates. 1951, a group of citizens in the area formed the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District, and they did it through a service plan that was approved by the court. There was a later consolidation with another district to form the ultimate Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District, but the genesis was in 1951 with the service plan there. The key part of that service plan was a definition pursuant to the Title 32 requirements, a definition of the geographic boundaries and the purpose of the district. And the purpose was stated as providing complete waterworks, sanitation and water, for the district and the inhabitants thereof, the inhabitants of the district. As some of you may know, special districts do a lot of different things. They can be libraries, they can be entertainment districts, they can be development districts, they can be fire districts. And the way you know what that district is what it says in the service plan. And this service plan for Green Mountain said it was to provide waterworks for the inhabitants of the district. There was no reference there to providing service to inhabitants outside the district or outside the boundaries. And the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District Service Plan has never been amended to do that. Next date, 1976, about 25 years later, Mount Carbon Water and Sanitation District is created for Rooney Valley. It was designed to do the same thing, provide water and sanitation for a specific geographic area, in this case, Rooney Valley. Rooney Valley, where Big Sky is located, CDN is located, Green Tree, the Cardell property, and Bandimere. It was amended. It was amended to expand to provide basically development services and build development infrastructure. And then it was later amended again to revert back to just providing water and sanitation service. 2007, about 20 years later, 30 years later, 2007, the first Rooney Valley development is Solterra. The developers decided it was too expensive. It was cheaper to try to provide sanitation service through Green Mountain instead of Mount Carbon. So they took themselves out of Mount Carbon. They had to get permission from the court to do that. And they knocked on the door of Green Mountain to provide service. And Green Mountain at that time in 2007 said that they would do that. There was no amendment to the service plan. There were no public hearings, but they did that in 2007. 2018, about 11 years later, is the second Rooney Valley development proposed, Big Sky and the related developments in Rooney Valley. The Big Sky developers came to Green Mountain, and just as they did with Solterra, they took themselves out of Mount Carbon and knocked on the door of Green Mountain. And on May 8th of 2018, the night of the election, the board adopted the Big Sky IGA. It was later the subject of the litigation. Again, no public hearing. Again, no amendment to the service plan. And the board that was being voted out of office at the time signed or approved the IGA to create a new sanitation district that would be run by Big Sky. The new board came in place, Jeff Baker and Alex Plotkin and Adrian Hannigan. They started asking questions, which ultimately led to the events I've recited in the history. The final event being the termination of the Big Sky IGA. The litigation was brought soon after that. And as most of you all know, the most recent result is that the lawsuits that were filed by the developer community as a result of the termination of the Big Sky IGA, the lawsuits were dismissed, and we're anticipating an appeal. But the outstanding question remains extraterritorial service, under what circumstances, under what conditions, what is the policy? And what was interesting, and is recited in the history I provided, is that there were certain assumptions made, there were certain decisions made, but again, there were no public hearings, there was no amendment to the service plan, and there was no community conversation about, is this a good idea as a matter of public service? There was reference to the guiding principle being, well, if it's cheaper for the developer community to do it, then that's what we should do. That may be a reason to do it, it may not, but there was no public conversation, no public hearings, no community conversation about that. We're at a position now where we can do that, and we invite you all to participate in that. All right, well, let's get started. What I'd like to do is, there's no particular order, but in terms of the candidates, I'd like to invite David Whiteman to speak to the group. And JD, I'll ask you to unmute David, and thank you for attending, David.
David, you should be able to speak. I unmuted you.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, before I get started, Deb Romero is not participating today, but she did ask me to read a statement on her behalf. Can I do that now or later? Or what's your pleasure?
Your choice, David, whichever is most convenient for you.
Let me go ahead and get that out of the way then. Okay, Deb says, my name is Deborah Romero, and I am the only person who signed up to replace Karen Mogan in the recall. I have followed this board since 2017 during the last recall and have attended every single numerous meeting since December 2020. I was there when the IGA was being terminated. Thanks to the stellar efforts of attorney Joe Timmons, the courts have now confirmed that this was the correct thing to do. Anyone who knows me, Deborah Romero, or has read my comments on Nextdoor knows that I am pro-citizen. My post on Nextdoor is called, quote, "Why should you care about Green Mountain Water Board recall?" unquote. Her website is www.votedeborah.com. Her website contains a timeline of key events. This required a lot of confirmation and listening to meetings again. The April 6th meeting is relevant to the topic of extraterritorial service. In the 4-hour meeting, I heard the 3-up for recall pushed to have inclusion as an option to be presented. Attorney Timmons said the developers would have to request this, and none of them did. It sounded like a non-issue, yet the 3-up for recall kept insisting. Karen Morgan didn't want to take Attorney Timmons' advice to let the citizens know that there was a $25 million price tag associated with it. At the time, it all struck me as odd. Here is my, Deborah Romero's, position with regard to extraterritorial service. Quote, with what I know today, I am not in favor of expanding the boundaries of Green Mountain Water or providing extraterritorial service. No one I have spoken with wants it either. While we can't stop development, we don't have to facilitate it. I would need to see all the relevant facts because, as we know, the devil is in the details. In general, I want Green Mountain Water and Sanitation to continue to do a great job of providing service within its current boundaries. Thank you, Deb Romero. So that completes her statement. Now, at this point, would you like me to read my statement?
Yes, thank you, Dave. Appreciate that.
And can you put it on the screen so people can read with me?
Yes, just one moment.
And I do that for those of us that are auditory learners and those of us who are visual learners.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay. Hold on a second. You just wiped out my screen.
We'll give you all the time you want. No worries. Take your time.
Well, how do I get the screen to minimize so I can go back
I
to
can
my?
stop sharing and then you can see, and I can allow you to do it again if you'd like, so you can kind of figure it out. So I just stopped right
Okay,
now.
okay.
And then
I'm
I'll start again.
okay. I guess start again, but am I going to lose my? I'm reading off my screen on my computer.
Okay, they can see what you're reading off your screen.
Oh, okay. Thank you to everyone for participating in this opportunity to share information and to work towards building a consensus vision of Green Mountain's future. Before beginning, I recognize any recall election naturally involves a lot of acrimony and conflict. As a 35+ year resident of Lakewood and a community activist, I have watched the growth of our water district. A decade ago, my oldest daughter, Michelle, who was a geologist with a master's degree from Colorado School of Mines, actually served on the board for a 4-year term. Occurring long before the current events, I got an opportunity to observe the board at that time and saw how the district operated under normal circumstances. In the ensuing years, I have served 2 terms on another special district, the West Metro Fire District, and 2 terms on Lakewood City Council representing Green Mountain. Furthermore, I'm now retired from a 30-plus year career with the federal government as an economist and an auditor. And finally, I have observed every water board meeting for almost the past year. While I probably would have done things differently, I recognize everybody involved in the past year has made mistakes. I don't want to add to the acrimony, so I'm not going to get caught up in the arguments about who made the most mistakes. As far as I'm concerned, whatever happened in the past year is now history, and I'm not going to obsess over every misstep. Therefore, I am not taking a position for or against the recall itself. The only reason I'm running as a replacement candidate is to help ensure the district progresses in the right direction if the people decide they want to replace the current board member. Let me start with a brief history overview. Decades ago, Green Mountain Water was formed to provide the water and sewer needs of the residents of a specifically designed area, basically Green Mountain. The district is not a business seeking to make a profit. Instead, it is a public utility formed to satisfy a specific community need. While state law is actually broad enough to legally permit the district to do other things, that's not really its function. For people wanting to make money, Lakewood offers many other opportunities. In order to avoid the potential problems associated with going into other directions, I believe the district should stick to the principal purpose for which it was formed, providing water and sewer for the district residents. As everyone knows, the developers of Rooney Valley, Bandamere, Dinosaur Ridge, and the areas west of the interstate don't want to build their own sewer facilities. Instead, they know it'll be a lot cheaper for them to get Green Mountain Water to do it for them. I don't think it is either appropriate or wise to get into the business of trying to make money by working with developers. Lakewood has dozens of water districts that serve their respective neighborhoods. If new communities need water and sewer, they should do the same thing we did and build their own special districts and not try to get us to help them. While Green Mountain can go to page 2.
I'm sorry, David, for some reason I can't get this up. If you got a second, I will download this first and then we can get it going if you want to hold on a second. Give me just a second. I'll get your page 2 up here in a minute. My apologies. Sometimes I was hoping the preview would work, but it didn't.
Is there some way I can minimize my screen so then I can see my copy on my computer?
I'm not sure how your setup is. It would be, I'd have to be there to see it.
Yeah, okay.
But I do have it set up here kind of big now so that you can read. My apologies to you.
Oh, okay, I did it. Okay. Okay. I don't think it's either appropriate or wise to get into business of trying to make money by working with developers. While Green Mountain should work cooperatively with other governmental entities, we should not sacrifice the interests of our own residents to advance the developer's interests. This is the crux of the problem. Colorado is a semi-arid environment facing long-term drought. All of Colorado's water comes from the exact same source, the rain and snows. All we humans can do is try to capture it and store it as much as possible in reservoirs. In the end, when we use all the water, that's it. There is no way to get more water. In addition to the challenges of building new reservoirs, including the proposed flooding of Bear Creek Lake, New Denver water reservoir projects, etc., Colorado is legally required by the federal government to release water to flow downstream to serve California and the southwestern states. So our water supply is limited, and there is nothing we can do about that. What we can do is try to manage the amount of water we use. To be truly sustainable, we have to avoid biting off more than we can chew. If we keep adding more and more users, we will quickly get to the point of saturation. We will have to ration water use to the district's existing residents. It will start with raising prices, but it will eventually get to the point of physical restrictions. The bottom line is Green Mountain does not need to go outside our district and help other neighborhoods. More users just add additional burdens to our systems to the long-term detriment of our existing customers. Any new tap fees would in the long run be more than offset by the higher cost of additional facilities and maintenance services. Therefore, furthermore, it would not be wise to start working with developers who have already demonstrated that they are willing to exploit our district to serve their own economic self-interest. Remember, these same developers pushed an illegal IGA on the previous board that would have ended up with Green Mountain actually giving developers money. And then they sued the district, costing us thousands in legal fees, to get the courts to force the district to help them limit their costs. Finally, for a public utility to assist one business, but not all business, is to engage in crony capitalism, which is a form of discrimination. So my position is the district should stick to serving its own customers and not get sucked into helping developers bring in more users who would just endanger our long-term water availability. In conclusion, remember, no matter how much money developers promise, we can't drink money. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Mr. Yost, would you be available to make a statement?
One moment, Mr. Yost, I'll find you and unmute you. Ask you to unmute. There you are. Ask right away. Go right ahead as soon as you're unmuted.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your thoughts, David. Like David, I really don't have a dog in the fight on the recall. In fact, when I was approached about signing the petition, I chose not to. I generally am not in favor of recalls. I just rather wait to the next regular election. But in this case, the recall petition did have enough. And so here we are. However we got here, this is where we're at with the recall. So if Alex Plotkin, I think Alex is on this call, if he's recalled, then I would be a candidate with David to replace Alex's position. You notice I refer to people as by their first name. You know, we're all neighbors. I've been to the several of the last regular meetings and special meetings of the district, and it's really dysfunctional. Frankly, I think all 5 board members should be recalled. I'm not, you know, that's not hyperbole, really. It's just kind of gotten to that point. So if there's a recall and, well, there will be a recall vote. And if Alex is voted out, then I'll be a candidate like David to replace his position. But it's not like I'm picking a fight with Alex or any of the board members that are up for recall. That couldn't be more, that could not be more incorrect. And like David, I'm not gonna weigh in on the issues. The board members know way more about these issues than I do. My position is that if Alex is recalled, then I would be a candidate along with David to replace Alex. Okay. And so that's really where we're at. If Alex isn't recalled, then my candidacy is really not it becomes an irrelevant situation. That said, I will run on my qualifications. I am a semi-retired civil engineer after 40 years of professional practice, specializing in water and wastewater, municipal water and wastewater engineering. Here in Colorado, my clients included the city of Loveland, the city of Greeley, the city of Thornton, Jefferson County, Arapahoe County, Douglas County, Colorado State campus there in Fort Collins, CU Boulder, Red Rocks Community College here in Lakewood. So I get how these local government agencies operate. I've been at literally thousands of board meetings over the years, and the board now is just forgive me, Alex, but you guys are dysfunctional. It's ridiculous. I know you'll have a chance to talk a little bit later. So anyway, that's my position. In terms of extraterritorial, I'm not going to make a blanket statement. I'm for it or against it. It does depend on the situation. First off, can Denver water and or Denver wastewater handle? If not, then everything's a no-go. Then the next question is, can Green Mountain Water and Sand District handle it? And if they can, great. Okay, we can move forward with the discussion. If they can't, and there needs to be improvement to Green Mountain Water District facilities, then is the extraterritorial applicant willing to pay for us in some way, shape, or form? If so, yes, then we can move forward. And then ultimately, if I do end up on the board of directors, then my decision will be based on what's the best interest of the district. So I guess that's all I have to say about that. I'll call it good and let you move on to John. Let you move on to the next person that wants to speak.
Michael, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Deborah Hanson.
Minute, Deborah. Okay, you've been asked to unmute. Go right ahead.
Okay. Hi. I am here because I am a replacement candidate for a board position with what I'm going to call the Water Board rather than Green Mountain Water and Sewer, because that's quite a mouthful. And I think we all know what that means. First of all, let me share a little bit of my background. I spent most of my business career working as a chief financial officer for an international software company in Denver. And as a result, I learned a great deal about management. I learned a great deal about finance, economics, any number of topics that are germane to this whole world of the water board. Prior to that, I was a project manager. And then prior to that, I was an internal auditor. So I have a good understanding of what organizations do and don't do successfully that allow them to manage their work and to manage their outcomes to achieve their goals. Much like both John and Dave have mentioned today, the goal of the Water Board is not to make money, it is to serve the citizenry. I am interested in this position, not because I'm particularly in favor of the recall, but if the recall proceeds, then we need candidates who are willing to take on the work of the Water Board, and I'm willing to do that. And I think I am uniquely experienced and positioned to be able to take into consideration the complexity of the ideas and the propositions that are put in front of the board. I live here in Green Mountain and have lived here for 30 years. My husband and I built the house that we live in. So we're grateful for the service that has been provided by the Green Mountain Water Board. And I reared my children in this area. So I have a great deal of love and affection, not just for the beautiful landscape that we live in, but also for the citizens of the district. And I have been involved in a variety of issues, largely related to the Lakewood City Council and Lakewood government, but I have been actively involved in those issues for probably the last 15 years. One of the things that I have heard mentioned by both of the other candidates and by Deborah Romero, the other Deborah, that we're talking about the developers. And I want to tell a story about developers from an experience that I had. A few years back, a candidate for city council knocked on my door and they said to me, well, we have to remember that developers are our neighbors too. I frankly had my breath taken away for a moment. And I said, no, developers are not our neighbors. They're not inherently evil. Developers are natural resource companies, much like coal miners or oil companies. We need them. We need what they do, but they're not our neighbors. it made me think about something that I learned when I was in MBA school, where I worked with both finance and accounting as particular topics of interest. They taught us there that the goal of a company is to enrich the wealth of its shareholders. That's it, nothing else. And in fact, that's what developers do. They try to operate in such a way as to enrich the wealth of their shareholders. They come into our communities, they develop land. We need them to do what they do. And their objective is to make as much money that will enrich the wealth of their shareholders and then to leave. So they are not our neighbors, but they are an entity that we work with and we must operate with. Whether that means we need to give them everything they ask for is a real question in my mind. What I see my role on the water board is to be the voice of the citizenry. It is not our goal to either thwart developers or to support them or in some way partner with them. Our job on the water board would be to make sure that the interests of the citizens, long-term and short-term, are represented and that we operate in a way that maximizes the ability of the board to function effectively to achieve their goals. That means we have to leave the theatrics at home. As a CFO, you can imagine that theatrics were not necessarily ever allowed in my job. That's not what you do when you are managing the finances and the financial interests of a company. Theatrics belong at the Buell Theater. And if I am elected to this position, one of my strong goals will be to ensure that we operate as a professional organization, that we consider the issues. I'm not going to tell you that I'll decide this way or that way or the other way, but I will tell you that I will not tolerate behaviors that reflect badly on the ability to make good decisions. I also have to say that water is a precious commodity, and anyone who serves on the board must consider that that commodity, as Dave so eloquently stated, is a limited resource, and it will only be more limited in the future. Planning for the use of water, planning for the use of resources to expand or increase service areas and expand the provision of sewer for other areas outside the district, those are serious, serious questions. And my goal and my job, as I see it, is to represent the citizens of the current district as it stands. That means developers may not get everything that they want. That does not mean that I have a vendetta against them or that there is any reason that they shouldn't operate in this area. It just may not be that the Green Mountain Water and Sewer District is where the water and sewer services will come from to support the endeavors that they want to undertake. So I'm very excited to be a part of this group. We have some tremendous voices that are working on behalf of the citizenry. I have a long-standing respect for my people that are my neighbors in the district, and I look forward to the opportunity to serve if I'm called upon.
Deborah, thank you very, very much. Mr. Wendell?
Moment, Mr. Wendell. Let's see. There he is. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Roger Wendell. And thanks to John, JD, and the other folks that are involved in making these events happen. I appreciate it. The question about the IGA and the IGA's poll and the developers can be really complex. And I want to address that a little bit later. But first, I want to kind of tell you where I'm coming from. And I think that my concerns are a little bit broader in nature. I'm brand new to Colorado. I arrived here in 1972. And since then, the population of the Front Range and Colorado in general has almost tripled since when I was a kid here in Aurora. And due to that tripling, I feel that we've lost a huge portion of our quality of life. You see it everywhere. I-25, C-470. If you hike as much as I do, you can't even get to the trailheads anymore. The air is unhealthy, and even when there are no Western fires. It's getting crowded, and as everybody I'm sure would agree, it's getting expensive here. So my biggest concern is the loss of quality of life. And I can point my finger at developers, but they aren't the only ones to blame. We've got government, we've got citizens, we're all to blame. We keep growing and growing. And my concern is that we're subsidizing that growth, that we're tacitly giving developers the green light to move forward. And I think if elected as a replacement candidate here on October 5th, my personal goal would be not to take away any developer or property owner's rights. They're certainly entitled to their property rights, but not to encourage any growth ever. Certainly to never subsidize any growth. We cannot afford it. Dave and Deborah and Michael and others have alluded to the idea that, water is a scarce resource. It certainly is. And we're in a long-term drought as we speak. That in itself is contributing to the loss of our quality of life. But this idea that we would entertain supporting any type of new development or growth here on the Front Range or in Colorado is mind-boggling. So if elected as a replacement candidate, that would be my goal, or my philosophy is to discourage that at all costs. And again, to emphasize not to take away any developers' rights or property rights or anything like that, but I really don't see any reason for us to go beyond the district boundaries to supply sewage services or water to any other entity, especially in the secular long run, if it's going to cost us so dearly, again, not only in the loss to our quality of life, but in expenses. I'm certainly opposed, as most people are, to higher taxes. And a lot of times that's veiled as rate increases. I think rate increases oftentimes are just disguised tax increases. Again, another assault on our quality of life. I would work diligently to avoid any unnecessary increases in fees or taxes or any expenses to the people of this district. So to summarize in a nutshell, again, quality of life, we've lost so much of it here in the, whatever it is, the 50 years that I've been around in this neighborhood. I'd work certainly to preserve the quality of life, to keep us within our current boundaries in the district, to control expenses. And I think I bring to the table a lot of experience in that regard. My career, I was a manager in the federal government, sometimes with crews of up to 300 employees. So budgets and expenses and those kinds of things are a big part of my career. And since then, I've done a lot of volunteer work with the Colorado Mountain Club. I'm on a couple of their governing boards. Expenses and those kinds of things are a big part of what they do. And I've worked closely with city governments over the years. At one time, I was an election commissioner for the city of Aurora. I've served as an election judge off and on over the years up until recently. So I feel I've got a good mix of business and government experience to help contribute to keeping things under control in this district. So that's pretty much where I'm coming from. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Roger, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mr. I'll apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, but Mr. Sinigla, I don't, if you're on the line, if you could raise your hand, sometimes the description for the participants doesn't match the names, so I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to participate if you're on the line. Mr. Sinigla?
You can raise your hand, Mr. Singa, by hitting the reactions and then raise hand. You can see my hand just came up like that. That's how I know who you are, and then I can unmute you.
Okay, I don't see a raised hand. All right, that completes the candidates for the recall position. I'd like to next turn to the current board members. And I see Ms. Hannigan, the board president, is online. I'd invite Adrian, invite you to speak if you'd like to. Thank you.
John, at this time, since another board member is also present, would it make sense for me to place Alex into the waiting room and then bring him back when Ms. Hannigan is done?
That won't be necessary. It's okay if there are two. We can't have three, but as long as it's just two, we're fine.
You've got it. All right, Adrian, give me 1 second. There you go. I've asked you to unmute. Go ahead, right when ready. Ms. Hannigan, have you been able to see the unmute button? I've asked her to unmute, John. I'm not sure. Maybe we can come back to her if she's not able to unmute.
Okay.
All
All right.
we can do is ask her. If she can't find the unmute, then I can't do it.
Okay, very good. All right. Alex Plotkin, did you want to speak?
I believe I'm unmuted now.
Yes.
Can everyone see my video?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. Thank you, all the previous speakers, for stating such succinct and valid points. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the public of the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation for about 3 years now. And I guess, as I've said during numerous meetings, there's been hundreds and hundreds of hours probably by now spent by various board members, you know, in the ongoing litigation and the research that was related to it. And before I say anything as related to the director position, I would like to kind of recall one of my experiences as a citizen. I had moved to Lakewood in 2012 with my family, and our second son was actually born here, literally at the house, not intentionally, but that was just, you know, he was in a hurry. And luckily we have wonderful West Metro paramedics who were here within 5 minutes, and everything turned out okay. So Lakewood has been home for quite some time. However, since before, as soon as after we moved to Lakewood, I got involved in local, you know, happenings. I was involved with the Lakewood 2025 effort, trying to address the issues of bikeability, the need to bring a lot more high-tech, well-paying jobs to the area, and a number of other issues that I thought would be beneficial economically and quality of life and in other ways for the city and its citizens. I don't know if anybody online is familiar what had happened in April of 2012, but that was the time when a joint commission between Lakewood and Morrison had made a decision. All commissioners except for one, Mr. Hallander, had decided to wipe away over 1 million square feet of commercial space, a public transit hub, and a number of other opportunities that a lot of citizens felt at the time would have greatly benefited the area. And for all of those interested, the area in question was called Red Rocks Ranch. This is the area that's farther to the south of the Big Sky and Cardell Homes area. And at the time, one of the things that was concerning to the citizens was, of course, the supply of water and again, the jobs, the public transit, and a number of other development and environmentally related issues. And pretty much every person in the room, myself included, spoke to those issues. And lo and behold, the commissioners listened, and again, all except for one voted to pretty much go against the will of the majority of the public. And what that had brought to me at the time as a citizen, it was a really jarring experience, because it kind of showed me how little the voice of the public can be valued at times. And as all of you probably know by now, in May of 2018, Mr. Baker, Ms. Hennigan, and myself were elected to the board. And while we're being elected to the board of Green Mountain Water Sanitation District, the previous board had passed the intergovernmental agreement to provide the sewer service to the Big Sky area. This was not known by any of us at the time. However, due to just pure accident, Mr. Baker at the time, after our election, had found this agreement. And of course, we immediately started asking questions. And the more questions we asked, the more questions kept forming in our mind. Why is this agreement here? How is this beneficial to the district? And the more we kept asking from the legal counsel at the time, the fewer answers, at least I myself, got. And in September of 2018, I was the one who pretty much took point on terminating the relationship with the legal counsel at the time. After that, a number of other events took place, but eventually we got to the point where the board had made a decision to terminate the IGA because, again, there was a number of issues, financial, environmental, and others that just went unanswered. And the board had made a decision to terminate the agreement. Thereafter, we got sued. The district got sued. And of course, as hopefully everyone knows by now, in May of this year and in July of this year, the judge had ruled in the district's favor. So I heard a number of statements, saying how it is the job of the elected officials to serve the public. And in my opinion, we've done nothing but serve the public despite all the adversity, hostility, and frankly, as far as I can tell, Mr. Baker, Ms. Hennigan, and myself are just literally average citizens. As far as I know, we do not have any in-depth political experience. So we really were citizens who were elected by other citizens to serve them. And I think, despite, again, all the adversity, we have made it this far. And due to my prior experience as a citizen and now as an elected official, I think it is imperative that the public gets to have their say. My position during the legal proceedings had always been that the district has the full legal right to say no to the service outside the district boundary. There were a number of legal arguments made by the plaintiffs that I was wrong, but I still strongly stand by the statement that the district has the full legal right to say no to the service outside of its boundaries. And during the settlement proceedings, that was always my position. I do believe Director Morgan was also in a similar position. Mr. Baker was always adamant about providing all of the legal options to the public and having the public provide the input as to what the board should possibly do. So again, I believe that it is the public's right to tell the board whether or not the public wants to provide the service outside this district's boundaries. There is no ifs, buts, or maybes. We as elected officials are here to make sure that that decision is left up to the public, not anybody else, not to some backroom deal that happens outside of the public's eye, and not in any other manner. So if I am retained, at least I cannot speak for the other directors, but I do intend to push for a lot more public input on this issue. And even though my position is, as you just heard it, pretty much the district has the full legal right to say no to the service outside of its boundaries, I would love to hear from the citizens a lot more in a lot more structured manner. And I'll just leave it at that. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. The next, or the remaining board members have either written out a statement or videotaped a statement. They are not present on the call. And the next one will be videotape statement by Karen Morgan. Apparently it's also on her website if anyone cares to see that. JD, if you could cue that up, thank you.
Hello, I'm Karen Morgan. I'd like to talk a bit about extraterritorial service, so you know my views. And that is service outside of our Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District. We have a couple existing intergovernmental agreements right now. So that is with Bear Creek and with Fossil Ridge. So they already receive extraterritorial service. Bear Creek was a simple matter of connecting outfall lines at a time when we could easily calculate our excess capacity. So that wasn't a problem. The problem is today that we're serving past our boundary. That's a geographical boundary and a legal boundary. So Denver Water can't serve out there. And these contracts are a legal and a business nightmare. They're very complicated. So the Fossil Ridge Intergovernmental Agreement, IGA, landed us in court once, and Rooney Valley IGA proposed landed us in court with not one, but multiple developers that we didn't intend to be signing the contract with. So this is a legal and business nightmare. That does not work. For our district, we run ourselves well. We have good people in place in all departments, and we handle all the problems well. We have existing troubleshooting bylaws, rules and regulations that are time tested. We know what we're doing there. But writing a new intergovernmental agreement for a system that's not been built and is that we don't have control over all those rules is something different. That is difficult, and we don't know how to do that. We're reinventing the wheel. The developers are not. They know how to write a contract that says shared cost, but it means we pay more. And we've done that now with this, and we've gone through it in excruciating detail. We know all of the little, well, we know most of the catches anyway, we hope. That turned this deal bad for us. I can't sign another contract like that when we've already caught problems. How can you go through, this is a trust situation. Can't do it with people who have already said shared costs, and then we end up paying. And there's no mechanism for us to dispute that. At least in this contract, it was their word is kind of the way it was. So we don't know how much it's going to cost us. There was no benefit to Green Mountain Water to sign this contract. So why do it? I'm not going to do it. I didn't do it. I didn't agree to this. Bigger picture, serving outside the district with these metro districts is taking our public service and turning it into a business commodity. People who are receiving our service can't vote in the system like you can. They can vote and tell us about rates and whatnot. And I don't agree with that because it's a public service. So I don't want to commoditize that by selling it out as a business. It's not a model I agree with. So once again, I've thought about this. I stand with not signing it. We didn't surrender. We didn't take a deal. If the majority of the board wanted to make a deal, it would have happened. There are three of us. We could have voted on that, but we didn't. We wanted to hear from the public. We wanted to get a good deal and find a benefit for Green Mountain or not do it. And We didn't do it. So we have proven that that's where we stand. That's where I stand. I don't want to serve outside the district unless there is a benefit to it. And right now I don't see it. So there is a little bit of a risk right now by voting for a new board. The case is now up for appeal. There's a new opportunity to write a deal with the developers and surrender and settle like they have been pushing since January. Please don't do that without being able to get the input and go through the right processes. We don't want to be rushed into something again. You know all the pitfalls. I know the pitfalls. So please keep us in. We've proven that we can do this, and keep your values as a district until we can find some benefit and a good way to work it if there is one. If you'd like any more information about this topic, please, or any topics, please visit me at KarenForWater.com, Karen4water.com, and email me and reach out. I'd love to talk to you. Thanks and have a good day.
Again, that was a pre-recorded statement by Karen Morgan. And Karen, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I have two statements that I'll read from the remaining board members. The next one is Jeff Baker, and he writes as follows. I conscientiously served the district over 3 years. I stumbled onto the secret Big Sky IGA intergovernmental agreement after our election May 18th and immediately made the issue public. Who decides whether we should take up space in our sanitation system with sewage from outside our boundaries? The Big Sky Rooney Valley developers believe they should make that decision. Election night, May 8th, 2018, the old board / developers rushed through the IGA as they were being voted out of office. The IGA forced us to take developer sewage from another district outside Green Mountain without a public hearing. After 8 months of research and many public board meetings, we learned the developers were taking advantage of our district. We tried to discuss this with them, and they threatened to sue. On April 9th, 2019, we terminated the IGA. Developers sued us. We knew we were right. However, over a year later, our board president and council pressured for settlement without displaying proper business cases for all possible options to the public. As we were trying to slow down the rush to settlement and present all the options to the public, the court dismissed the case and agreed we were right from the beginning. The recall group agrees with the developers. They say we are just an appliance. Our only job is to do what the developers decide. They say we should have settled and agreed to a new IGA. They say we should be removed so they can settle for a new IGA without presenting all the options to the public. You and I should decide whether it's a good idea to expose our system by taking sewage from outside the district boundaries. It is your district, not theirs. We make the decisions, not the developers. It's our district, it's our decision. Please vote no on the recall of Jeff Baker. Again, that was a statement from Jeff Baker, and Jeff, thank you very much for sharing that. The last statement is from Rhonda Peters. She writes as follows. Hello, my name is Rhonda Peters, and I have been serving on the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District Board of Directors since May of 2020. I've been a homeowner, parent, and business owner in the Green Mountain area for the past 10 years. I hold a PhD in engineering with a minor in public administration, and have served in numerous leadership and decision-making roles across multiple organizations over the past 30 years. Professionally, my background experience is in utility, infrastructure, and policy. I have significant experience working closely with legal counsel in adhering to, interpreting, drafting, and updating engineering and governance legal documentation, as well as managing litigation. When I found out the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District was named in a 130 million lawsuit, and the plaintiffs had filed for a receivership to take control of the water district and change it from being resident run, I felt motivated to become involved to keep our water district in the hands of our local community. Due to the open meetings law, no more than 2 Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District Board directors can meet to discuss district business without it being an official district meeting, which the organizers of this town hall meeting wanted it to be more informal. Although I am not able to attend this meeting, I'm very interested in your input and will be reviewing the meeting recording when it becomes publicly available. I also welcome you to contact me via email at rhonda.peters@greenmountainwater.org with any questions or feedback you have regarding the district. You can also email directly to all 5 board of directors at the same time via the email address board@greenmountainwater.org. Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District monthly meetings are held the second Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. with in-person and video participation options. For more information about the district's meetings and to also review audio recordings of past meetings of the Board of Directors, please go to www.greenmountainwater.org. I hope to see you at an upcoming meeting. September 14th is the next meeting, and/or receive your input via email. Sincerely, Rhonda Peters. Again, that was a written statement from Rhonda Peters. Rhonda, thank you very, very much for sharing that with us. Okay, that concludes the presentations by the candidates and the board members. Now we'd like to open it up to everyone else. And JD's online, and I have access to the same list. We welcome folks to raise their hand and share with us your thoughts, share with everyone your thoughts about extraterritorial service and any other issues that may have been raised related to providing service outside the boundaries of Green Mountain. The floor is open. Janet, I see you raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Janet Draper. I live in Ward 4. And I would like to thank the Morgan, Plotkin, and Baker for representing us citizens. I can't imagine if my neighbor wanted to bring all of their trash and garbage over to my trash bins, because it would make their place look nicer and be a little cheaper for them. I can't imagine that that would be in my best interest. And I am against extraterritorial service. I spent great deliberation in voting the last time we had an election for Green Mountain Water. And some people were surprised, and we citizens that I know, we discussed it. We read bios, we did our own little bit of information gathering, and we thought that people would represent us best, who had our best interest at heart. I think we have wonderful opportunities for people to make money in Lakewood. I think Rooney Valley is a gem of a property, even amongst Denver Metro undeveloped land. I don't think that we should agree to help developers who have money. If it's not going to work for them, they could go somewhere else. I would rather see infill and redevelopment. I suspect that this virgin land is actually cheaper for people to develop. I'm not sure, but I don't think that we need to subsidize somebody. And there are a group of people, it's atrocious to me that they actually sued. and I am against extraterritorial service because I want my water and my sewer in my district, how it was set up. And thank you for hearing my voice.
Janet, thank you very much. Ms. Judson?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say I agree that I'm against the provision of extraterritorial service to the Rooney Valley. I think that there are always unforeseen circumstances, and we do know, that we may assume liabilities for this in one way or another if there are problems with it in any way, and the land is problematic down there. It's very unstable. Used to be mines down there. Of course, water's a concern. I don't want to, advocate or in some way advocate development. I think we have no obligation. I agree with the previous speaker and many others on the board to provide that service. The courts saw it that way. They dismissed the lawsuits from the developers. I think we should just support our current board members, or if we feel so inclined, elect members that are against providing extraterritorial service. We do know, from what my understanding is, we would have to put in significant modifications to the current sewer system. I think I remember a figure of about $150,000 at least, and probably be more, to accommodate Rooney Valley. And I don't believe that we should take that on as a liability. Thank you for considering that, and thank you to the many hours spent by the current board members. I definitely support Jeff Baker and Alex Plotkin and Karen Morgan for what they've done. And I appreciate their service. I want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I'm looking at the rest of the participants. Would anybody else like to speak? I don't have a name, but it references on. Oh, there was a hand raised, but it disappeared. Oh, on Green Mountain at AOL.com. Go ahead.
My name is Ludmilla Kopoloff-Glasson. I'm a native Coloradans and watched growth, some good, some bad. I support the current members. I am so glad they fought for what was right. I thank you for putting on this little Zoom meeting. It's wonderful to finally get a name, a face, finally being able to hear their side of the story, how they worked, what they did for us to stop what shouldn't have been started in the beginning. No one should ever get together with somebody that has sued you previously. That is like sleeping with the devil. I have been on board members, before. The president is in control of the meeting. The people have turns to talk, but what I saw was pure chaotic, hectic, and it was too much, too many people attacking people instead of debating people. I want to thank everyone for being on the board. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of personal life away from you, and I appreciate that. And I have been steadfast to say no, I will vote no on the recall effort. Thank you, JD, and thank you, John, for putting this on.
Thank you very much for your comments. Looking to the group, any others would like to comment? We still have time, and the floor is open. Anybody else? All right, well, I'll make some concluding remarks. Oh, there's again, there's not a name, it's CLDOM. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name's Kurt Dominic, and I've been a resident in Lakewood in the Green Mountain Water District for the past 25 years. And I've tried to follow these proceedings with the Green Mountain Water District ever since the 2018 election. And I've been completely in support of the current board's position to invalidate the IGA, and don't feel that the water district should be pressured into providing extraterritorial service. So, John, I really appreciate the Rooney Valley News, and appreciate you putting on this this town hall, because I'm getting conflicting messages. I just received a flyer on my door today that basically says that Karen Morgan, Jeff Baker, and Alex Plotkin were in favor of extraterritorial service, and that if we supported them, that Big Sky would prevail, and we would be providing these water and sanitation services to the district. But everything I've read so far, and everything that I've heard today from Alex and from Jeff and Karen, is that they were the ones that brought this to the attention of the board and to the public, and spearheaded the invalidation of the IGA, that Big Sky was basically harassing them through lawsuits in order to pressure the district into revisiting an IGA so that they could get the service provided to their development in Rooney Valley. So I joined tonight to hear the candidates, and I was glad to hear that the existing board had their own statements to read. But again, I didn't hear anybody say that they were in favor of the extraterritorial agreements. But that seems to be the message that's being put out there for supporting the recall. So again, I just reiterate that I don't feel that extraterritorial service to the detriment of the existing district residents is beneficial at all to the Green Mountain District. So I am somewhat in a quandary, because it sounds like no matter which way I vote, the extraterritorial service might not be provided. So, but I am generally not in favor of recall elections. So I would be in support of Karen Morgan, Jeff Baker, and Alex Plotkin in voting no on the recall, and appreciate their efforts in invalidating the Big Sky IGA. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Ms. Baker?
Hi, my name is Angie Baker. I am Jeff Baker's wife. What I wanted to say was that it sounds like there is a pretty good, from everybody that spoke tonight and some of the people that I know that haven't spoke, it's sounding like the citizens and the candidates that would be running in place of these 3 board members that could possibly be recalled, they all pretty much agree. Nobody wants their fees raised. Nobody, it seems like, wants to go outside the Green Mountain boundaries. So pretty much everybody's in agreement on that. I truly believe, if anybody has been watching these Green Mountain Water Board meetings, which I have been to or watch them all. I think the reason this recall election is even being done and the money being wasted on it is because these 3 water board members, Jeff, Karen, and Alex, have stood strong, and they've had to fight to do the right thing. And a lot of those fights and standing strong for the things that they know the residents want, it's come during these meetings. So it's made these meetings very confrontational. And I think if people will, if they're on the fence, review some of these meetings. Look back. You're going to have to read between the lines on some of these things. The arguing that has gone on, pretty much due to the lack of the president of the board controlling the meeting. Most boards are going to have disagreements, not, everybody is going to agree. Things need to be discussed and come out that certain people are not going to like, but it needs to be discussed. And it needs to be able to be in an orderly, respectful manner. And when certain people aren't respecting the rest, this is what happens. It's extremely confrontational. But these 3 board members have brought to light many things that needed to come out. And I truly believe they have worked night and day diligently to get the word out to the residents, to be able to have the residents know what is going on. Yes, they fired an attorney. They got an attorney. They knew they had lost the trust in their attorney. And there is many other reasons why the attorney, it just was not working for the whole board. And if the whole board, all 5 members, would have taken a real look at that instead of letting emotions and little personal things get in the way, all 5 board members would have been in favor of letting Joe Timmons go, and they wouldn't have had to fight and argue over it. It was the logical thing to do. So when people are wondering why this recall election is even going on, that's why. So I think definitely the residents of the Green Mountain Water District are going to do the right thing. I think more people are waking up to the realization that this is a big scam. That's really all that you can call it. This recall election is a scam. So I think people will vote no, and they'll want to keep the winning. It is the winning board members. They will keep them in place. So thank you. Thank you for doing this, John.
Thank you, Angie, for your comments. Looking to see if others have their hand up. Linnea Hauser, please go ahead.
I'd just like to say that Angie so well expressed what I was just thinking. There are scary ulterior motives behind this recall. Everyone wants to keep the service within the district. There has been agitation, there has been harassment. Maybe Angie didn't mention all the details, but sad situation that has brought this recall about for totally wrong reasons. And I don't live in the district, but everyone who lives in the greater Rooney Valley will be impacted by the decisions made by this board. And I hope very much that everyone who can vote will vote no on the recall. Keep Alex, Jeff, and Karen working for you, which means working for everyone like me in the whole Rooney Valley. Thanks to our current board members.
Thank you, Linnea. Just checking to see if there's anyone who hasn't already spoken. Anyone else care to speak?
John, I'd like to make a comment if I can.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, JD.
That's okay. Thank you first for allowing me to facilitate one of the things I think that's really, really valuable that I've been hearing tonight is the members who are up for possible replacement, they all said, if it happens, they didn't vote one way that they said that these board members were doing anything bad or wrong, but they were there to provide a service if called upon. That is exactly what board members are for. And I applaud you all for coming forward if this happens, unfortunately, that you would be able to do that. I think it's a very selfless act to serve on a board. I think a lot of people have been on boards and understand all of the time and commitment. And really, it's about your service to your constituency. I'm not here to vote either way. What I am here to say, and I really do appreciate the comment about facilitation. That's what I do. So much of what I've seen and being a part of this, what I would guess I would call a fiasco, was just get some facilitation techniques in play, right? It's not very difficult. And if you, current board members and any board, can recognize that a president is not facilitating and controlling a meeting, then move on. Find a facilitator that can help you do that. Get control of your sessions. They're not difficult to do. It's something that I think that could benefit this board wholeheartedly. And so I applaud all of you guys for talking through this. This is how this is supposed to work, right? You debate with open conversation. You can, if somebody were to come on here and say, I disagree, we would listen to that. We're not here to thwart opinions. We're here to open dialogue and have conversations. So I just wanted to say that given the recall, if it passes, you've got people who are willing to serve. If it doesn't pass, those members might still also serve when come the next election, right? That's a great thing. To get more people involved in this service is really what a great board can do. There's a reason you have term limits. I just hope that we could take this to the politicians and get term limits up there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JD. We're getting close to 8 o'clock. I think we'll go ahead and close it at 8. But Lynn, I think I saw your hand up. Did you have anything more that you wanted to share? Okay. Oh, there she is. Oh, we lost you again.
Okay, I just wanted to say, no, I was just trying to lower my hand and you saw it raised. So anyway, my bad. But, you know, I definitely support the water board members that spoke tonight. I support, and I will vote no on the recall. And that's, I support Jeff Baker and Alex Plotkin, Karen Morgan, and Rhonda Peters. So I also like the comments that those other people gave that were running for the board, that they were very wary of providing extraterritorial service. I think that's how the residents of Green Mountain feel. I've spoken to numerous neighbors of mine about it, and they almost everyone unanimously, they don't want us to get into providing sewer service for the Rooney Valley. So that's all I want to say. And thank you, John, for having this meeting.
Thank you, Lynn. All right. I think I don't see any other residents who wanted to speak. Is there anyone else before some concluding remarks? Okay. Yes, thank you all very, very much for participating. This was recorded, so we will make it available publicly. Please share it with your friends and neighbors, anyone who may have questions about the issue and the candidates. I want to emphasize more than anything else how wonderful it was to have a discussion about the issues without acrimony, personal attacks, and harassment. I think we've proven once again, as we have over the last several hundred years, that we can address difficult issues thoughtfully and genuinely with open dialogue. And It's our hope, of course, that this is just the beginning of good things to come. Thank you all very, very much for participating. Thank you for the candidates for your statements. Thank you for the board members for your statements. Unfortunately, not everyone was able to appear in person because of interpretation of legal requirements. We respect that and we appreciate your written statements. With that, thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening and look forward to future conversations. Take care.
And just an addendum, this recording will be available. I'll give it to the board members so that they can provide it on the website as well. And I'll put it on a place where you all can see it again too. Thank you, everybody.